Guru Ji ka Khalsa, Sri Vaheguru Ji ke Fateh. Sat Sri Akal everyone, and Ji Ayanu. Welcome back to the Health and Wellness Show on the SIKH channel. We have with us Ricky Singh, founder of Supply Life. Ricky, great to have you back on the show.
Thank you, Ravi. Sat Sri Akal. Sat Sri Akal to everybody watching, and thank you for having me back there, Ravi. I really appreciate it, and it's a great honor to be helping everybody out there with gut health.
Thank you. And it was very useful hearing the guidance and information you gave in the first episode where we spoke about how, from your experience of having irritable bowel syndrome and problems with the stomach, it inspired you to provide a solution to the market where you could help people with food allergies, you could help them with blood testing to improve their stomach health. So that's very commendable that you're using personal experience and pain that unfortunately you encountered to help others. Now, whenever we look at anything on diet, on training, on nutrition, what we are seeing through a range of information sources is the importance of stomach health and bacteria in the stomach. So whenever I write my shopping list, I always remember some things that people say about prebiotics, probiotics, and we'll come on to those things. One thing that is really curious with our viewers is stomach health. How important is that to preventing type 2 diabetes and other illnesses such as cancer?
It's a very good question, and yes, it's very, very important to make sure we have great gut health. I mean, there's several ways to look at this. Currently, you got type 2 diabetes where people are prescribed medication, and some of the side effects from the medication can be type 2 diabetes. And then on the other hand, then it's the case of by constantly kind of having an inflamed gut by consuming foods that are upsetting the stomach over a long period of time. This then leads you down the road of having different types of chronic diseases. And obviously, like type 2 diabetes could be one of them. If not type 2 diabetes, there could be other things too. I do feel for the people that kind of get stuck in a circle where they get prescribed medication, and on top of that, they are consuming foods that are causing them to have gut inflammation, causing them to bloat, and obviously, like they're in that vicious circle where they're trying their best to improve their health overall, but it's almost like going 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. So going back to the question of obviously how can we minimize the risk of having these chronic diseases, I think first of all we've got to go down to the road of what are we putting into our body. I know in our last episode we touched base on wheat and gluten. So if you look at as a prime example, on a Saturday or a Sunday, and in some families they'll do it every day. They'll have bronte. They put in ghee or butter onto the wheat, and it's stuffed with aloo, which is alu's fine. But if you look at that as from a nutritional perspective, is that you're having a grain which has changed over the years due to the modification of to harvest a crop. So pesticides that get used to kind of harvest that crop. They want more gluten in it, so it contains more weight, so they get more money on the harvest itself. And then obviously that comes down, and obviously at the end user, they end up consuming that, and then that enters into their system. And as I mentioned before, whereas wheat was a grain which was very good for us, now it's more often that I see grain is causing an issue in the human gut. And so your phase one would be the case of trying to minimize or consuming the foods that cause you inflammation. You can go on Google and see what common foods are that cause you gut inflammation. But yeah, if you ask me specifically, I think the best thing you can do to minimize having such things like type 2 diabetes or eliminating chances of having chronic diseases would be the case of finding out what foods are causing you gut inflammation, Yes, you can do a food intolerance test, which will specifically tell you, but it's down to you at the end of it to focus on having optimum health by eating good vegetables, variation within your diet, and prioritizing that gut health is so important that that's going to be the key to your success, short term, long term, to help you live a better quality of life.
Okay. So with gut health, wheat, it's everywhere. Whether you get bread or if you have some type of quinoa salad from some supermarkets, when you have couscous. So it's very hard though on a day-to-day basis to reduce or eliminate wheat.
So
So
if you look
what steps do you take?
So let's look at it from two ways. It's difficult at first because you're limiting, or mentally you're used to choosing what you normally go for. So let's look at it from someone that has a 9 to 5 routine. They'll wake up in the morning, they'll brush their teeth, they'll get ready, they'll go to work. That's a routine. And then more than likely they'll be ordering lunch from the same places what they're used to ordering. I think once you step out of that habit of ordering from the same places that contain wheat, or the same places that where the main ingredient is wheat, so like pizza places, subways, sandwiches. There's so many other things you can do. I mean, let's look at it from a perspective of fueling your body. So like you drive your car. If people if see the watchers, people that are viewing have a vehicle, have a car, um, they get given instructions to be putting a certain fuel into their car, which is designed for. So let's say, for example, of if you put diesel into a car that runs on petrol, it's going to cause severe damage. And I'm sorry to use this analogy, but I want you to look at it from this perspective. If you're putting fuel into your body, which is going to cause you gut inflammation, what tends to happen then, the side effects from that is that you'll have an upset stomach, then your immune system is under attack, so it's under stress. So it's trying its best to keep the inflammation in the gut and try getting it out of your stomach. And then by the time like the day carries on and you finish up for the day, when you are going to bed, your healing process and your resting gets affected. So you don't get great quality of sleep because your stomach is constantly working and your immune system's currently working to get all that food out of your system because it didn't like it. Whereas if you was to put the correct fuel within your body, so if you was eating foods that you're not intolerant to, your immune system is not under stress. Your body will absorb all the nutrition what it can from that meal itself. It's fueling you so you get higher energy levels, and then when you are sleeping, you're sleeping relaxed. You get into deep sleep a lot quicker, and you'll wake up the following day feeling energized.
Okay. So with the work that you do helping customers, how do you go about providing this blood testing and testing for food allergies?
So our food intolerance testing is very simple. We send a kit to our patients' houses, and it's all done from the comfort of their own home. They will do a pinprick, so they'll put a small device to their finger. That will cause a small puncture, like a very microscopic punch into the finger. We require around 5 drops of blood that comes into a tube. That comes into our laboratory. At that point, there we will test the blood against 208 food items, and we look for an IgG reaction. So the same reaction that your body will trigger if it was to consume anything and found it was foreign. And that's the same reaction that we look for. And if that comes out from your blood, we know that this food is causing you an issue in your stomach, meaning that we need to eliminate that from your diet. What patients and clients need to understand is that eliminating them will improve your immune system, as well as that you also can have the better quality of life by not feeling bloated and everything else that comes with it. But don't think it's forever. What we can do is once we know what food you are intolerant to, we can improve your immune system just by eliminating them foods. And when you get tested again, what should show on the results is that what your results were the previous year to this year. Be the case that some foods could come down into the green sector, which you can start consuming again. So it's never permanent. It's just until your gut health and your immune system comes to a certain point where you can start introducing food back into your system again.
Okay, so apart from the blood test, there's nothing else that one needs to send is just a blood test.
Yep, that's all it is. It's from their fingertips, so it's nothing scary. It's a pinprick to your finger, and it's just literally so easy to do. And the results you'll have. I mean, we offer a lot of our clients support, so ongoing support. So once we get your results, we'll help you with alternatives, and obviously, like they will see a difference within the first 5 days of following the foods that are listed in green and avoiding the foods that are in red.
Okay, and because this is all um, provided from your organization, therefore, naturally, they don't need to get consent from the GP to do this. It's done at the discretion of the customer or the individual.
That's correct. We've had patients come to us after they've had many tests at the GP, and for them, it's still not giving them answers at the GP. Whereas when they get the results from ourselves, they eliminate them foods and they notice a difference straight away. So a lot of them are people that get diagnosed with IBS, and they come to us, they end up getting a test done, and the report is so easy and straightforward to follow. They straight away get it, and from that point there, it's just knowing what alternatives you can have. And so, like, which I'll explain later on about different types. For example, like you have roti every day or wheat every day. You can use different types of flours. You can have besan flour, you can have rice flour, coconut flour. There are so many other alternatives, so you still have the same experience of enjoying your food.
So, in terms of alternative foods, you raised a very valid example that in a working day life of billions of people across the world, where they've got countless things they have to do every day. So it's very hard to stick to the perfect meal or eating plan. And I know from being a personal trainer and training my clients that they do endeavor to adhere to eating meal plans and exercise routines. So with protein, and I know from having spoken to vegetarians and vegans that naturally they don't have any animal source protein. So they talk about combining incomplete proteins to give them uh, the best effect they have from a protein, right? And you can bet that when I go to my local supermarket this week, I will be getting vegetarian sausages because apart from them being quite tasty, um, but it's just a way that we can vary the protein sources in our diet. And but when I read those food packets, even though it's marketed as corn or meat free, when you look at the ingredients, it says pea protein, soya protein. So could you tell us a bit more about these different types of protein, please? Pea and soya
Sure.
protein.
I look at soya protein. Again, it's a form of protein, and then you've got different types. You've got pea protein, and sometimes you find them as a blend. I'm always very cautious about soya or soy protein because it is like a natural estrogen booster. So for women, it's fine, but for guys, it is known to kind of, I'd say, imbalance the hormone because you're putting more estrogen in your body. So if you're consuming almost like 3 soya protein shakes per day, that there could be a chance where it can increase your estrogen levels, and which could lead to gynecomastia. I go down to the road of pea protein. Pea protein was one of the first that kind of came out of the breakthrough um, of a vegan or plant-based protein. It's common that people are intolerant to pea, and it's sad because it's got the same scenario as wheat, because of the mass production and the farming. The outside shell of the pea becomes very difficult to digest. So if you go online, you could check this out. It's now become known as almost like it's on par with like a meat base or a non-vegan protein source. If you compare it to like meat or like beef or like chicken, it's as hard as. Um, so yes, obviously when you're having these sausages, they may contain pea protein and soya protein. Just be very careful that if you're consuming too much soya, Could it give you the side effects of estrogen? And if you are pea intolerant, then more than likely it's going to cause you more damage than good. If protein is the key, if it's the case you're having these vegan sausages because of the protein levels, then I would recommend possibly using like a hemp seed protein, a pumpkin seed protein, and a rice or a brown rice protein. These three won't have the same side effects as the other two. And I'd also recommend mixing the two together to get the best amino acids from best of the seed based and obviously the grain based, which would be the rice. So it digests a lot easier in your stomach, and you get the nutrients from the both and the breakdown, so the absorption rate's a lot higher.
Okay. Okay. So, what is? Can you just explain about what estrogen is? Because men, they all know that they have testosterone. That's one of the dominant hormones in men. Can
Yep.
you tell us about what estrogen is and what gynecomastia is, please?
Sure. So let's look at fenugreek methyl. I'm not too sure of how many people know this, but fenugreek is known to help increase testosterone levels, which is the male hormone in the human body itself. So it's very good at that. And then for women, it's soybean. So soybean is the equivalent of methyl or fenugreek for women. So the soybean will cause the estrogen levels to go up. So for women, it's not a problem, but for guys, it becomes a problem, and because then this leads to gynecomastia, and this is a tissue that sits on the chest, which is very difficult to get rid of, which then later takes you down the road of potentially having to operate or whether you remove that tissue permanently on your chest.
So, when you say the tissue on the chest, you mean the lower part of the chest? Does that cause the chest to hang down? Is that what gynecomastia is? That's a symptom or a sign?
Yeah, so naturally, if you have a hormone imbalance, and that could be at a young age, and this could be for many different factors, from different foods, lifestyle, um, also can be genetic as well. But yeah, if you're going to increase your estrogen levels, then the tissue around the male breast tends to get larger, which then that then results to potentially having to get a small incision for them to remove that tissue.
Okay, that's very insightful information. So, with an increase in people turning vegetarian and vegans, and there's a range of reasons for this. One of them is spiritual. Um, Another could be that they're concerned about humans having more impact on animals and animal consumption, and there's environmental concerns for consuming more meat. So what it means is, if you're vegetarian or vegan, you're out traveling to business meetings, you're not going to always have a chance to have a corn-free sausage. You're not going to always have a chance to have a corn steak. You won't have a chance to have tofu, which are all used by vegetarians to give them protein. So as a result, people revert to protein supplements. They revert to protein bars. Now, in the world of supplements, everyone or most people have whey protein or whey isolate as a protein supplement. And that's heavily marketed on supermarket shelves, on retail stores, on online shops. When you pick up a bodybuilding magazine, you'll see some adverts on supplements. So some supplements have the artificial flavors, sweeteners, and preservatives. Now, you mentioned from the previous episodes that it's important that we avoid these. Why is that when they're prevalent everywhere?
Okay, to kind of make this easiest or the easy way to understand, let's look at processed meats. Um, it's now, if you, in fact, this is an easy one. I think going back previous, or even going back 10, 15 years ago, they promoted red processed meats like ham, cooked hams, or if you look at, say, bacon or sausages, they promoted it. And now, like over recent years, they now class it as a carcinogen, and that's because the nitrates, which is a preservative that goes into it, and it's known to be causing bowel cancer. So going back to why should we avoid them, and it depends which ones are in them too as well, because it's never a straightforward one. There's always some that are in there which you can't understand, and you almost have to Google them because you can't get the words out of your mouth just to find out where they come from. So let's look at our stomach. So our stomach has to filter through the ingredient in order for it to absorb into our body to get fuel and nutrition and for it to kind of benefit us. So when these preservatives go in there, so you look at artificial sweeteners like let's look at sucralose, and you've got preservatives again. So many different E's are in there, and there's another one that you mentioned, preservatives,
Sweetness.
and artificial flavors.
Mm.
Your stomach has to work twice, almost three times as hard to break that down. So if you're saying to me, "Look, Ricky, I'm going to take a protein shake which has a flavor in there, and then we're going to have, say, a brown rice protein which contains zero flavor. It's 100% ingredient." First of all, you know what's going into your system. Number two, from your body absorption or understanding what you're going to absorb, the breakdown is going to be a lot easier. So I understand where sometimes people have no choice but to do it as a one-off, but doing that every day is only going to cause you more problems in the long run. So why we should avoid preservatives, artificial flavoring, um, and like nitrates and all them kind of things. For our gut health perspective, if you want to have an optimum gut, and you want to make sure that you're doing the best for yourself and you want to make sure that you live a better quality of life, then avoiding them will be the best thing you can do. And otherwise, you're going to be literally going on the road of having an upset stomach. You're putting things into your body like sucralose, which your body doesn't even break down. So if you look at sucralose, this is an artificial sweetener, which they call it like non-calorific, so it doesn't class as a calorie because your body doesn't break it down. But what you should be worried about is that if your body doesn't break it down, what damage is it causing inside your gut, or how it's recognized inside your gut?
Okay. It's been very insightful, stimulating having this discussion with you. And there's a few uh, moments left, and we would love to have you in the studios once we will get back to traveling more to do recordings. So I know I can only anticipate with the viewers that there'll be many questions about this subject and discussion. So just before we conclude this, please share with us any tips or advice you can give, whether you're vegetarian or non-vegetarian, on improving the health of your stomach.
Sure. So in regards for the Sangha that are watching, and everybody out there, so if there's some tips or some advice for myself to help your stomach, try getting variation in your gut. So if you are doing roti every day, and your roti is making ganat and wheat, then maybe try and switching it up to possibly have rice the following day and use besan the following day, just to kind of get good variation within your stomach. Besan, which is chickpea flour. You can also use rice flour as well as an alternative. Take some probiotics, which is very straightforward. You can order some online. Ravi, I'm sure you can make some recommendations for some probiotics. Get some supporting prebiotics by your fruit and vegetables. So if you're busy, or you sometimes you don't like consuming fruit, put them into a smoothie. You can do that. And again, remember, like from I know we spoke about it before, but cooking our Indian Punjabi food with heat and sometimes oils. Let's switch it up. So rather than using ghee, go ahead use olive oil. And just remember, by every time we cook food, and if it's got a process where it goes through water, the goodness or the vitamins get evaporated in the steam or potentially get remained in the water. And if you do end up reheating it again, the the vitamins are in the food kind of come down a little bit. So I would recommend possibly taking a multivitamin to kind of help you or your immune system kind of get enough vitamins in your day-to-day life.
Okay.
And before about dairy, do your best and get some dairy alternatives. I know you're very limited time there, Ravi, so but I want to give as much as possible to the viewers.
No, thank you so much, and apologies that we have to leave it here, but I'm sure we'll have you back on the show and one day in our studios. So to the Sangat and the viewers, please continue to feedback on any content you would like covered. This show is for you, is to help you live a more healthier, happier, and better life. Please feedback to info@sikhchannel.tv. That's info@sikhchannel.tv. Mark it for the attention of the Health and Wellness Show. Until then, have a great day. Stay safe, stay healthy. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Sri Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.